Good day, this is Mike, and welcome to Kung Fu's Day on Golden Age of Geek. Here we'll be looking at one of my favorite genres of all time, the Kung Fu movie. To my delight, Kung Fu has taken over the world. The hows and whys are many and varied, and that subject will be covered in a later video. Right now, I'm going to look back at those who helped shape the genre. And when talking about the Kung Fu movie, you have to talk about Chang Cheh. Back in the heyday of the Shaw brothers, Chang Cheh was a film directing machine. Operating at a pace not seen since the Hollywood studio system, Chang Cheh produced multiple films every year, and not just kung fu movies. He tried his hand at every genre and kept up his amazing pace for decades before finally retiring in the 1980s. But kung fu is what he's known for, and Chang Cheh created some of the classics of the genre. Having worked so long, there's lots to choose from. And what's most impressive to me is that the stories often cover diverse themes. You can really divide his work into several categories. Today we'll be looking at those films he made with Jimmy Wang Yu, considered to be the first kung fu star of that era. Wang Yu started out as an athlete who became popular in Asia, and today opinion on him is split. His fighting, especially in the early films, was rough, to put it mildly. But the guy connected with audiences back then, and he starred in some of Chang Cheh's best work. One-Armed Swordsman is one of those kung fu movies that was getting praise long before it became too cool to do so. It's a pretty iconic film. Jimmy Wang Yu plays the hero. He loses an arm and has to learn a new method of fighting. The fights aren't as elaborate or as fanciful as some of the other entries. The bad guys use a special trick that, for once, seems not only possible but truly practical. It's a hooking sword that actually hooks onto the opponent's sword and leaves them open for a dagger stab. Simple but effective. But what really stands out is, believe it or not, the story and themes. Chang Cheh has often stated this movie was inspired by Rebel Without a Cause, and you can see that in the ending. Wang Yu does return to save his master, but in the end he leaves him to strike out on his own path. This is a pretty radical departure for the kung fu genre, where the sifu is a revered figure, and it's a radical move for what is traditionally a very patriarchal society. But that's one of the common themes you find in Chang Cheh's work with Jimmy Wang Yu, an emphasis on individuality. His characters are either primarily concerned with their own goals and achievements, or are forced to find their own way after society deems them unworthy. Whereas One-Armed Swordsman is well known and well respected, the assassin had until recently been overlooked. It is deserving of high praise, though. Tell me if this sounds familiar. A lone warrior agrees to pose as a dignitary so he can get close enough to kill a corrupt official. That is the same basic story as Jet Li's Hero, and the also very well-regarded Emperor and the Assassin. The Assassin predates both films by 3 decades, yet it compares very well. It looks gorgeous, too. Shaw Brothers was very much the Hong Kong version of MGM in those days, and it shows here. The story again centers around Wang Yu's character, who desires above all to die a hero's death, even though he is of low status. In the end, he has to forsake both his love and his family in order to accomplish his ambition. This is, for much of its runtime, an elegant story that feels like an old Chinese fable more than a slash-em-up kung fu movie. But there's plenty of action, and of course Chang Cheh doesn't skimp on the red stuff when it comes to the finale. Before kung fu films were known for their over-the-top violence, they were called Cantonese or Mandarin films, and they played on the foreign film festival circuit. One of the directors who garnered acclaim in that era was King Hu, and one of his most famous films was Come Drink With Me. It's a lavish wuxia fantasy. Think Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, only with 1960s effects. Golden Swallow was Come Drink With Me's direct sequel, and here Chang Cheh took the story in a very different direction. This was more like what we expect from Chang Cheh. This film has plenty of the red stuff and lots of cruelty and sadism thrown in. The story again is focused on Wang Yu. This time his individualistic character is taken to the extreme. He's killing all the bad guys in the land and framing Golden Swallow, the heroine from Come Drink With Me, for the deaths. He hopes to force her to go with him to go on the run with him so she can truly be free of things like restraint toward society. He does sound like a modern-day Nietzsche fan, but Wang Yu makes it work because he is completely badass in this movie. He mows down legions of baddies, with Chang Cheh directing around his limitations, sometimes more successful than others. There's even some early handheld camera work here, but even that looks good by comparison to today's shaky cam. But Wang Yu's Silver Rock is a flawed character, and the film acknowledges this. It's interesting to see that the star and director are able to explore a darker side to this theme of individuality that they pursued quite earnestly in both One-Armed Swordsman and The Assassin. Return of the One-Armed Swordsman isn't a great undiscovered masterpiece. What it is balls-to-the-wall insane action. Jimmy Wang Yu's character returns and gets roped into battling a group of baddies, each with their own gimmick, which is a favorite trope of Chang Cheh's. The action scenes are as over the top as can be, but even here there is something interesting going on. The movie stays true to the themes of its predecessor. Wang Yu agrees to help a group of sons rescue their fathers from the bad guys. In the course of the battle, nearly all the sons are killed, and there's a pretty bleak scene where the grieving fathers look for their slain children. In the end, Wang Yu returns to his quiet life with his wife, leaving behind the martial world in total devastation. It seems the fates have confirmed that he was right to leave that world in the first place. And all that is just one part of Chang Cheh's incredible kung fu legacy. Next time we'll go from individualism to intense bromance as we look at the work he did with David Chang and T. Lung. Be sure to like, subscribe, or comment, and I will see you next time on Golden Age of Geek.